Thank you all so much for showing up at 8 a.m. I hope that you all have sufficiently caffeinated. But thank you again for coming to our session. I'm Emily Maung-Douglass with Louisiana Sea Grant at LSU, and this is my colleague, Dr. Christopher Green, also with LSU at the Ag Center. This is the Deepwater Horizon Discoveries and Outreach session. I may be completely biased, but I think that we've got a great lineup for you this morning that maybe the caffeine won't be so necessary after a while. We've got a lot of great speakers that talk about how both the science and the outreach are not two mutually exclusive items, but they're actually things that can be and should be intertwined. So I hope that you take something away from these great examples. So as I mentioned, I work for Sea Grant, and I'm going to be talking a little bit about Sea Grant's partnership with the Gulf of Mexico Research Initiative, or GoMRI, to help share oil spill science. Just to quickly refresh all of our memories, Deepwater Horizon was the largest offshore oiling event in U.S. history. Along with this massive release of oil, there's also the first time in history that dispersants were used not only at the water surface, but at depth as well. So because of the circumstances of the situation, there were so many unknowns. We didn't know what the impacts to the health of our Gulf seafood would be. And in turn, this caused a lot of anxiety about what would happen to the long-term health and wealth of our fisheries and our tourism economies. And there was a lot of mistrust over the decision to use dispersants and the way that they were used. There's also a lot of misinformation floating around, and from many, many sources, people had this spill fatigue, so much information coming from so many different angles, and people didn't know what the answers were. And there were still a lot of gaps scientifically as well. So there's really this need to fill those knowledge gaps. So research initiatives such as GoMRI, or the Gulf of Mexico Research Initiative, have tried to help fill some of those gaps. So while we still don't know everything 6 years later, we know a lot more than we did back in 2010. For those of you who aren't familiar with GoMRI, it's a $500 million investment by BP from non-penalty funds. So it's completely separate from the Restore Act. And to date, it's doled out more than $330 million towards oil spill science research, but also towards getting that information out to the public through outreach. And one of the outreach efforts that it's helped fund is Sea Grant. So Sea Grant does a lot more than just spouting out oil spill information. We are university-based programs, not just one, but actually 33 programs across the country. Our mission is to help promote and enhance the practical and responsible use of our coastal and marine resources. We're funded by both the federal government through NOAA and through the individual states that we're located in. So for example, I'm in Louisiana, and LSU has the Sea Grant for that state. Because of our structure, we're non-advocacy, meaning that while we don't push specific viewpoints, we do try to provide the best available science about any given topic so that people can use that in their decision making and just to better their understanding. We deal with things not just, as I said, like oil spill science, but also aquaculture and fisheries and workforce development and K through 12 outreach, but also working with adults as well. We have a 50-year history nationwide and 40 years in the Gulf of Mexico. And because of our non-advocacy status, that's actually earned us kind of the unofficial title of as being an honest broker of knowledge. So people within the community really trust us and know us by first names and come to us when there's something like Deepwater Horizon to find out, what's going on. Can I eat my seafood? Will I be able to fish in the long term? Those are things that Sea Grant has tried to help with in the community. So when Sea Grant partnered with GoMRI back in 2014, each of the 4 Sea Grant programs here in the Gulf of Mexico hired one oil spill specialist, myself included. We have varied backgrounds ranging from things like fisheries science to chemistry and ecotoxicology, public health, and physical oceanography. We work collaboratively together as a team to help synthesize and translate oil spill science for many different user groups within the community. And we try to do so without jargon so that no matter what someone's professional requirements are, whether it's technical or non-technical, they can follow the important discoveries that you all are making. So we work across the Gulf of Mexico, but we've also recently started phase 2 of our program, where we are branching out more across all of North America, not just within the US, but also Canada, Mexico, the Caribbean as well. My counterpart at Texas Sea Grant is actually at a fisheries conference right now in the Grand Cayman Islands. So you can decide who got the better end of that deal, but I'm happy to be here. And we have 2 other people on our team as well. A communications person, Tara Skelton, who just joined us this past year with phase 2 of our program, and she's helped keep things looking really consistent and beautiful and streamlined. And just in terms of coordinating all of our efforts, we also have a regional coordinator, Steve Sempier, who helps keep all of our efforts in line. So, as I mentioned, Sea Grant works with a lot of groups within the community already. And so these are the target audiences that our oil spill outreach team is currently working with. These are audiences that Sea Grant has traditionally worked with. And you might notice that they kind of fall into one of 2 groups. Those who could use oil spill science for technical on-the-job decision-making. So like our emergency responders, our natural resource managers. And then we have other user groups who, maybe they don't have very technical professions in terms of science, but they could definitely use this information just simply because of the fact that they live and depend on the Gulf of Mexico. So we've worked with these groups continually for the past 2 years, and based on feedback that we got from these groups and with meetings from other stakeholders, we've added on these other 2 user groups, the oil and gas industry and environmental consultants, into the effort as well to try to bring together more cohesiveness in terms of the flow of information. So we don't want to just spit out oil spill science at people. We want to make sure that it's actually something that they need and that they're interested in and that they could use on their job. So we've met with more than 1,000 people from across the Gulf from each of those target audiences in the past 2 or so years, and tried to understand what oil spill science questions people still have after 6 years, what would help them be able to do their job better or sleep better at night if another Deepwater Horizon happened, say tomorrow. So trying to figure out what things they really care about, trying to synthesize and translate that information for them, delivering it to them, but also taking their questions back to our funding source, GoMRI, so that those types of things that people are really interested in can hopefully get funded. So based on those conversations with people from across the Gulf, this is just an example of some of the things that came up in conversation. This is a wordle. So if you all aren't familiar with them already, the larger the word, the more prominent it was in terms of our discussions with these stakeholders. So things like dispersants and public health, and it's the Gulf of Mexico, so shrimp were on people's minds. So these are things that people really cared about. Based on those conversations, then we've created a series of outreach publications. I think we have 9 online currently, but actually a few more that are currently in layout that are getting ready to hit online as well. They're all available on our website and also in print. And those are all based on input from our target audiences. So things ranging from the health of our seafood to, tar balls on beaches, what kinds of impacts the spill had on our aquatic life as well. We've also do science seminars. We have a couple of our guest speakers were actually speakers at some of these seminars as well. Both our outreach publications and our science seminars all contain peer-reviewed published science, so it's something that it's a trustworthy source of information for these different user groups. But again, also it's They're aimed at questions that people have, but the really important thing is that, again, it doesn't contain jargon. So regardless of what someone's professional background is, it's digestible information. The thing that I'd really like to talk with you all about, to push for, is to get you all involved in these. We have a variety of different topics that come up, and we're always looking for guest speakers. So I hope that if you all find any of this at all remotely interesting, the stuff that you're seeing in this session today, and you want to be perhaps more involved if you're not already, I hope that you reach out to us to possibly be a guest speaker. Two of the workshops that we've had in the past that I think might be of particular interest to you all as researchers are ones that have involved the emergency response community. So one workshop in particular was Bridging the Gap, and that's between oil spill researchers and emergency responders. And the other one was Beyond the Response, and we had, at both of those, a large mixture of scientists and emergency responders getting together, talking about oil spills and things that helping researchers understand the chain of command and how it works during a spill in terms of, who makes the decision to use dispersants, who makes the call about who can sample where, and that sort of structure, and then the scientists getting to talk a bit about what their needs are. And, in a lot of cases, as oil spill researchers, I'm sure that you might be interested in being the first one present after a spill to be able to take samples. Well, you have to make those connections first, right? Because if the circle of trust is right here and you're way out here, the people who are going to get to sample first are not those people who are way outside the circle. They're the ones that are a little bit more close to it, or perhaps even a part of it. So trying to bring those groups together so that there's more understanding and more collaboration. That's the goal of those things. So to that end, I would like to make a shameless self-promotional plug for our upcoming workshop. It's going to be something similar to what I've just described: more emergency response, more oil spill researchers, and it's going to be sort of in conjunction with the GoMRI conference. So if you're not familiar with that, that's the GoMRI sponsored conference. It's kind of like the Super Bowl of oil spill science in the Gulf, and it happens every February, and it's going to be in New Orleans this upcoming year. Registration is going to be free to our workshop event. So if you're already headed to GoMRI, come a day early, come to our workshop from 1 to 5 that Monday, and then it's at the same location as the conference. If you're saying, hey, GoMRI, the registration fee is a little bit too steep, I can't make it, still come to our workshop, spend the weekend in New Orleans. It's a lot of fun. It'll be crawfish season, so that's always good. And have your fill of crawfish and beer and good jazz, and then come to the workshop. It's free, and hopefully you'll make some good connections. So if you all are interested in working with us, or if you have any questions, or maybe you'd like to simply tell us about the science that you're working on, that, hey, I've just published this really cool paper on mahi and oil, and, check it out. We'd love to include it maybe in one of our future seminars or a publication that we're working on. So with that, I'd like to thank you for your attention, and if you have any questions, I have about a minute or so.